By the time she turned 28, they spoke of her like a jar left too long on the pantry shelf, still there when all the good things had been taken. They called her a spinster, while her hair was still thick and brown, and her hands were still strong enough to knead bread for a family that never said thank you. Hello, my dear friend. I want you to picture a little western town in the 1880s, a place called Larkspur Ridge with one dusty main street and a scatter of houses leaning against the prairie wind. On the edge of town, there was a weathered farmhouse with a sloping porch and a woman named Eliza Hart, who had somehow become the person everyone leaned on and the one no one chose. Eliza's parents had come west with big hopes and thin pockets. By the time she was 18, her mother's health had begun to crumble like old plaster, and her father's back had gone stiff from years behind a plow. There were younger brothers to raise and a sister to marry off, and Eliza was the one who tied on an apron and did not take it off for a full decade. She cooked and scrubbed and hauled water till her shoulders ached. She patched shirts and soothed fevers, sat up with sick calves and crying babies, kept the small Hart farm from sliding into chaos. When she was 22, a shopkeeper in town came courting. There was talk of a white dress sewn by candlelight, of a little house near the general store, of Eliza finally stepping into a life that belonged only to her. 3 weeks before the wedding, he went to Denver for supplies and came back with a younger bride on his arm. The town clucked their tongues. Her mother cried. Her father slammed a door and would not talk about it. The man never even looked her in the eye again. From that day on, the word jilted followed Eliza like a bit of burr caught in her hem. It was not the worst thing that could happen to a woman on the frontier, but in that house it became a kind of family shame. Her sister married a ranch hand at 19 and never let anyone forget it. At the supper table, she would joke that some girls knew how to keep a man interested and some girls only knew how to keep the biscuits from burning. Her brothers would laugh, elbows on the table, mouths full of the food Eliza had made. Her mother would sigh and say a woman who let a man slip through her fingers ought not be too choosy now. Her father would grunt and stare at his plate as if the gravy could save him from the tension in the room. Men do not want a woman who thinks too much, her mother would say, or talks too much, or waits too long. You had your chance, Eliza June. Eliza would keep her eyes on the mashed potatoes and keep the peace the way she always did. When the plates were empty, she would clear the table and wash up by lamplight, listening to her sister brag about new curtains and to her mother whispering fears about who would take care of them all when Eliza finally left. It never seemed to occur to them that no one had asked if she wanted to. The Hart place sat where the prairie began to wrinkle into low hills, close enough to town for gossip to find them, close enough to the mountains that on clear days Eliza could see the dark blue line of timber and rock in the distance. Sometimes when she rolled out biscuits at dawn, she would look up through the kitchen window and imagine there was a different life somewhere up there, where a woman's worth was not measured in how quickly she caught a man before her 25th birthday. In town, the girls she had grown up with pushed prams and talked about school shoes and winter coal. When Eliza came in for flour or lamp oil, they gave her the kind of smile people wear at a funeral, soft and sorry around the edges. Behind her back, they called her the Hart Old Maid, as if 28 were the end of the road and not a bend in it. At home, her family did not bother to hide their jabs anymore. You best be extra kind to your sister's children, her mother said one afternoon, hanging damp shirts by the stove. They are the only ones will call you anything like Mama. Her sister laughed and agreed. Eliza felt the words hit and settle, but she only lifted another shirt from the wash tub and wrung it out with steady hands. That same week, A widower from 3 farms over came calling, a man with sour breath and a temper like dry lightning, quick to strike and gone before you saw it coming. Her parents watched him ride up with the hungry look of people eyeing a full pantry. They sat him at the good end of the table and praised his land and his cattle, and Eliza understood with a slow, deep certainty that they meant to be rid of this inconvenient, unmarried daughter, one way or another. She did not know it yet, but on that same evening, high above Larkspur Ridge, where the air ran thin and cold, a rich mountain rancher named Cole Everett was counting his herds and feeling a quiet ache he did not speak of to anyone, a space at his long table where no one sat. The road between their 2 lives had not yet twisted them together, but the mountains have a way of carrying news down the draws and along the creeks. Word of a woman laughed at for being too long unmarried was about to find its way into the high country, and when it did, the mockery her family threw at her every day would be the very reason a rich mountain man would ride down and ask for only her. The widower's name was Ray Dugan, and the night he came to Sunday supper, Eliza knew from the way her mother fussed with the good dishes that this was no friendly visit. He was a square man with small eyes that counted everything in the room, and as he sat, he looked around the Hart kitchen, not with curiosity, but with quiet ownership. Through the meal, her mother slid the best pieces of meat to his plate and laughed at every dull remark, and her father asked about acres and cattle, as if each answer might nail another loose board back into place. Ray ate fast and mostly watched Eliza's hands, the strong fingers roughened by years at the stove and wash tub, and when he finally spoke to her, it was in the flat tone a man uses for a hired girl. "You cook well," he said. "My boys need that. House is rough since their ma passed. I have land and a roof. You have years and chores behind you. Seems a fair trade." To him that was marriage, a trade of labor for shelter, and her mother rushed to call it a blessing before Eliza could even look up. When the dishes were stacked to dry, Eliza stood at the basin, arms in warm, soapy water, and listened to the low murmur from the other end of the room, as her parents and Ray talked about what sounded very much like terms. When he rose to go, he paused by the door, where she held a lamp and gave a short, approving nod, like a foreman looking at a new plow. "Your folks are sensible," he said. "A woman of 28 is lucky to have a man look twice. I will be back in a week. I expect a yes." She dipped her head, because peace had always been her first duty, but the word lucky sat in her mouth like a stone. As soon as the door shut, her mother turned on her, voice bright and sharp, warning her not to be foolish again, and reminding her that prettier girls were on their 2nd baby already. Her father stared into the fire and said Dugan had land, and 2 boys, and they had more heart mouths than they could feed. Her sister only smiled that small, satisfied smile, and said no one else had asked in 10 years. The kitchen air felt thin, as if the walls were already closing around the answer everyone expected her to give. She stepped onto the porch and let the cool prairie night wash over her, boards cold under her feet, stars scattered thick above the dark fields. Out past the last fence, the line of the mountains rose against the sky, and for a moment, she let herself picture a life that was not pinned between this tired house and a man like Ray Dugan. She saw his place in her mind, his quick temper that everyone mentioned in a low voice, the boys learning from him how to speak to her, and her chest tightened. "I would rather scrub these floors till my hair turns white," she whispered to the empty yard, "than bind my whole life to a man who cannot see past his own shadow." Only the wind and the old cottonwood heard, yet the words straightened something in her. That same week, high in the country where the air ran thin and clean, a rancher named Cole Everett listened while a hired man talked about town news. The men spoke of the Hart girl in Larkspur Ridge, 28 and unmarried, keeping her parents' place alive while they mocked her and now being pushed toward a widower with a bad name. As Cole rode his fence line that evening, with the peaks glowing red in the last light, he found his thoughts returning to that picture. A woman doing all the work and taking all the scorn besides. By the time he turned his horse toward home, he had decided that on Sunday he would ride down to meet this so-called spinster and see for himself what kind of woman could carry a whole family on her back and still stand. Sunday came in bright and cold, the kind of autumn morning that makes the sky look higher than usual. Eliza woke before the rest of the house, as she always did, and put on coffee, set dough to rise, sliced bacon, and laid out her father's best shirt so he would not grumble about not finding it. While the others dressed for church, she stayed in her plain calico and tied on an apron, because someone still had to clear the breakfast dishes and see that the fire did not die. Her mother said it would not do for Eliza to be seen too hopeful in town, not when she had a good chance with Mr. Dugan, and must not spook him with ideas. So once again she watched them ride off from the porch, skirts hitched slightly to keep the dust off their Sunday boots, leaving her to gather up the morning behind them, like so many crumbs. Out beyond the fields, the mountains sat quiet and dark at the edge of her life, and she felt again that little pull toward their blue shadow. She was still at the table when she heard another set of hooves in the yard. A single horse, heavy and even in its stride, not the clatter of the family wagon. Eliza wiped her hands on her apron and stepped to the door, heart giving an odd, small kick that she told herself was nothing more than surprise. The man dismounting in their yard was taller than Ray Dugan by a head and broader through the shoulders than any Hart boy. His coat was good leather, worn but well kept, his boots clean of town dust, his hat brim pulled low against the glare. The horse under him was a big bay with the kind of muscle that comes from real work at higher altitudes. This was no farmer scraping by on thin soil. This was mountain money, the kind that comes in cattle and timber and years of knowing how to turn hard ground into a living. He took off his hat when he saw her, and she noticed his hair was threaded with the first gray at the temples, not from weakness, but from weather and time. His eyes were clear and steady, the color of a deep river just before dusk. "Morning, ma'am," he said, voice low and even. "Would I be right in thinking this is the Hart place?" She nodded, suddenly aware of flour on her forearms and a loose wisp of hair at her cheek. "You would," she said. "My parents are at church. If you are needing Mr. Hart for business, you can wait inside if you like." He studied her a second longer than a man needs to look at a stranger's daughter, not in a way that made her skin crawl, but in a way that said he was weighing something more than the price of hay. "Name is Cole Everett," he said. "I have land up past the timber. Came down for a word with your father, that is true, but you will do for the first question I have." No one ever said she would do for a first question. She felt herself stiffen a little, then made room for him to step onto the porch. He stayed outside, though, one hand resting easy on the saddle horn. "I hear tell you keep this place running," he said. "That you look after ailing parents and a sister with her own family, and that there is a man with a temper being spoken of over your head." The bluntness of it took her breath for a heartbeat. In Larkspur Ridge, people wrapped their meanness in sugar. This man served truth like black coffee, hot and plain. "People say many things," she managed. "Some are true. Some are just talk to pass the time. Are they lying when they say you do not wish to marry this Dugan? He asked. Or is that just the part nobody cares to listen to? Eliza looked past him at the empty road, then back at the stranger who had ridden down out of nowhere and somehow asked the only question that mattered. I do not wish to marry a man who thinks a wife is another plow, she said quietly. And I will not spend the rest of my life dodging fists and sharp words to make other people comfortable. But in this house my wanting has never weighed much. One corner of his mouth tipped, not in amusement, but in something like respect. Seems to me wanting is where a life starts, he said, not where it ends. Before she could answer, the clatter of the Hart wagon reached them. Her family came up the lane in a small cloud of dust, voices raised over some small church quarrel. Her mother spotted Cole at once, and her eyes lit with a mixture of calculation and hope. Strangers with good horses did not just appear in poor yards every day. You did not say you were expecting company, she hissed at Eliza under her breath, already smoothing her hair and straightening her own shawl. Then she stepped forward with a bright smile and hands twisting together in what she hoped passed for modesty. Sir, welcome, she called. We are always glad to see new faces at the Hart farm. I am Mrs. Hart. This is my husband. Our girls help with the work. Cole nodded politely, but his gaze flicked once more to Eliza, still in her flower-marked apron, still standing with her weight on one tired foot, as if ready to turn back to the stove at the first command. In that single glance, he saw the whole picture. The way her family flowed around her as if she were part of the furniture, the way no one thought to ask if she wanted to sit, the way her sister already leaned in to whisper that Eliza was nearly 30 and lucky to have any man look her way. Cole Everett had come down the mountain to see if the story he had heard was true. What he saw on that porch was more than truth. It was a woman whose value had been spent on other people's comfort, while they laughed at the idea that anyone might choose her for herself. And standing there, in the dust of the Hart yard, with the prairie wind lifting the loose strands of her hair, and the mountains waiting behind him like silent witnesses, he felt a calm, simple thought rise up. If there was any choosing to be done here, he would be the one to do it. And he would not be asking for a different girl. They went inside because Mrs. Hart would not hear of a man with a good horse standing in her yard. She pushed Eliza toward the stove with a look that said, "Keep busy," and smiled at Cole as if she had been entertaining strangers all her life. Her sister fluttered near the doorway, adjusting her ribbon. Her father cleared his throat twice and asked about cattle prices, as if that were the only reason anyone ever rode down from the high country. Cole took the hard chair at the end of the table and let their questions wash over him. Where was his place? How many head did he run? Did he have hands enough for winter? He answered plain and short. A solid ranch in the folds of the mountain. More cattle than he could count in one sitting. He did not brag. The facts carried their own weight. When the talk slowed, he set his cup down and turned to Eliza, where she stood at the counter, hands in the dishwater. I did not ride out here for cattle, he said. I came to speak about your daughter. Her mother's face lit. Our younger girl is in town just now, she said. Pretty as a picture and only 20. Eliza there is a great help at home, of course, and almost settled with a widower. Mr. Dugan is very serious about her. He may call this evening. Cole's gaze did not move from Eliza. I heard about Dugan, he said. That is one reason I am here. The other sits right there with soap on her hands. The room went still. Her sister's smile flattened. Her father frowned as if a sum had come out wrong. What talk have you heard? He asked. That you have a daughter who keeps this house standing, Cole said. that you mock her for not being wed while you lean on her for every chore, that you are fixing to hand her to a man known for drink and a quick temper because you are tired of looking at her under your roof." Her mother bristled. "People like to color a story," she said. "Eliza has had chances. She turned down a fine shopkeeper years back and hardly anybody asks twice after that. Mr. Dugan is willing to overlook her age. She knows she must be grateful." Cole looked at Eliza then, really looked, at the way her shoulders drew tight when they talked, as if she were not there, at the tired set of her mouth, at the steady strength in her eyes that had nothing to do with gratitude. "Do you wish to marry Dugan?" he asked her. No one had put the question to her like that before. In this house, marriage had always been spoken of as a duty, not a choice. Her parents stared, shocked that anyone would ask her opinion in front of them. Her sister looked ready to shush her before she answered. Eliza dried her hands on her apron. "I wish not to live in fear," she said. "I wish not to be spoken to like a hired mule. That is all I know." "That is enough knowing," Cole said. Hoofbeats cut across the yard then, fast and careless. The door swung wide and Ray Dugan filled the frame with his blocky shape and his sour breath. "I am owed an answer," he said without greeting. "Preacher said as much this morning. I came to fetch it. Yes or no, Eliza Hart?" He did not see Cole at first. He saw only Eliza near the table and stepped toward her, hand coming out as if to clamp on her arm. She flinched back, but there was nowhere to go. Cole rose between them with a slow ease that made Ray stop short. "She has not spoken yet," Cole said. "You will wait till she does." Ray blinked up at him, then sneered. "This is family business," he said. "Old maid ought to be thankful any man is willing to take her on. You ride back to your rocks and leave this to us." Eliza's father cleared his throat, torn between fear of losing Dugan's help and the solid presence of the man now standing in his kitchen. "Mr. Everett runs a fine spread," he muttered. "He has come with an interest in arrangements." Ray swung his gaze between them and barked a short laugh. "You figure she got 2 offers now," he said. "That is rich. I already talked terms. Her place is with me." He reached past Cole again. This time a large hand closed around his wrist, not rough, but with a strength that stopped him cold. "Her place is where she chooses," Cole said, "not where 2 men trade her like a wagon." Ray tried to yank free and failed. "You aiming to fight me for her?" he snarled. "I am not here to fight," Cole said. "I am here to ask." He let Ray's wrist go and turned to Eliza in full view of her family, of the man who thought he had bought her, of the life that had treated her like part of the furniture. "Eliza Hart," he said, "I have a house up in the high country with more empty chairs than I care to own. I have land enough and work enough, and I have no wish for a wife who walks on eggshells. I want a woman who has already carried more than her share and is still standing. If you would come, I will ride back with you as my promised bride. If you would rather stay, I will leave you my horse for the day, and you can send him away when you are ready to ride anywhere but here. What do you choose?" The room held its breath. Her sister hissed that she would be a fool to dream above her station. Her mother whispered that no one else would ever ask like this. Her father stared down at his hands, more afraid of change than of her unhappiness. Ray Dugan growled that this was nonsense and that women did not get to decide such things. For the first time in many years, Eliza felt something in her chest rise up that was not duty. It was not defiance for its own sake. It was a quiet, sure knowing that this was the moment her life bent one way or the other, and that if she did not choose for herself now, she might never get the chance again. For a long moment, no one spoke. The kitchen that had always felt too small for all the Hart voices suddenly felt wide, like the whole prairie had poured in and was waiting. Eliza's heart beat hard against her ribs, but her mind was strangely clear. She thought of all the mornings she had watched that wagon roll toward town without her. She thought of her sister's jokes, her mother's sighs, her father's silence, the way they spoke of her as if she were a problem to be solved instead of a person. She thought of Ray Dugan's hand reaching for her like she was a tool he had paid for, and of Cole Everett stepping between them without bluster, just steady and sure. Her mother found her voice first. "Do not get carried away," she said, forcing a brittle smile. "Mr. Everett is being kind. You cannot expect a man like that to mean it. Mr. Dugan here has already spoken at church. People know. We cannot back out now." Her sister chimed in, sharper. "You are almost 30, Eliza. You turn down one man, you will be right back here washing dishes while the whole town laughs. You are not meant for big houses in the hills. Take what you can get." Ray jabbed a thumb toward himself. "That is right," he said. "You know me. You know my land. He is just a stranger with smooth words and a view. Come on, girl. Enough foolishness." Cole did not argue with them. He kept his gaze on Eliza, as if the rest were only noise. "I am not offering you a fairy tale," he said. "Winters are hard up there. Work is harder. I am away some days riding fence, but no one in my house raises a hand in anger, and no one laughs at the woman who keeps the walls standing. You would be my wife, not my servant. That is what I can promise." No one had ever talked to her about a life like that, plain and unsweetened, and still sounding like a gift. Eliza drew a breath that seemed to reach all the way down to the soles of her feet. "I will not marry Ray Dugan," she said. Her mother gasped. Her sister sputtered. Ray went red. "You foolish old maid," he snapped. "You think a man like him will keep his word once he is ridden off? You will come begging back yet." Eliza turned to him, shoulders squared. "I would rather scrub floors alone till my hair is white," she said, "than share a table with a man who talks of me like a cow at market. Take your temper somewhere else, Ray." He took a step toward her, hand half raised. Before he could finish the motion, Cole moved, not fast, not loud, just there. One big hand settled on Ray's shoulder and turned him toward the door. "You heard her answer," Cole said. "You set one more foot in this kitchen today and I will put you outside myself. Go cool off somewhere that is not her concern." There was a weight in his tone that made even Ray think twice. He muttered something crude under his breath, grabbed his hat, and stomped out, the door banging behind him. Her father sat back down slowly, as if someone had taken the only script he knew how to read and tossed it in the fire. "You always were the stubborn one," he said, not quite looking at her. "If you ride off now, there is no coming back when it goes bad." Eliza stepped around the table, hands no longer dripping dishwater, shoulders straight. "If I ride off now," she said, "it will be because I chose my own road at last. I will not come back to apologize for being happy. If you ever want to see me, you can ride up the mountain and knock on my door like anyone else." Her mother's eyes filled, not so much from missing her as from fear of what the town would say. "You are throwing away the only sure thing you had," she whispered. Eliza glanced at the sink, at the stove, at the worn path between table and doorway that she had walked 1,000 times. Then she looked at Cole, still standing as though he had all the time in the world for her answer. "This was never sure," she said softly. "It was just familiar." Cole held out his hand. "Then come see what else the world holds," he said. She untied her apron and folded it, laying it neatly on the chair she had always used. It felt like setting down a weight that had worn grooves into her shoulders. She smoothed her skirt, lifted her chin, and placed her hand in his. His fingers closed around hers, strong and steady, and together they stepped out into the bright afternoon. The neighbors talked for weeks about the sight of it. Cole Everett lifting Eliza onto his horse, her skirt swinging as she settled behind his saddle, her arms snug around his solid frame, while the Hart family stood on the porch with their mouths half open. Some said it was foolish pride. Some said it was a miracle. Up in the high country, in a big timber house with wide windows that looked out over the whole valley, Eliza learned what it felt like to be teased without cruelty, to have her thoughts asked for at supper, to sit at a table where there was always an empty chair waiting on her side. Years later, a peddler brought news down that Miss Hart, the spinster of Larkspur Ridge, was Mrs. Everett now, helping run a ranch that fed half the county, laughing easy with a man who looked at her like she was the best thing that had ever happened to his land. Her family listened in stiff silence and told themselves it was more talk. But on quiet nights, her father would sometimes step onto that sagging porch, look toward the dark line of the mountains, and wonder what might have changed if he had believed his daughter's worth before a rich mountain man rode down and proved it. My dear friend, if this story kept you company for a little while, I would be grateful if you tapped like and hit subscribe so we can ride the next trail together.